Monsieur le Président, you are an advocate for more climate ambition, no doubt. Why is this fight so important to you and to your President Macron?
Okay. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, heads of state and government, ministers, friends. In a few words, I was very struck by the emotion in the room when some of the young people spoke earlier. I was lucky to speak to some of them, and in many of our countries, each week for months and months now, we've had young people speaking, and I think they've identified an absolute urgency that we have to respond to here. We need to say, we're doing what's necessary. But things aren't going quick enough. Even if you're aware of things that aren't working, you're not going quick enough. That's one of the things they're saying to us. They also say that we're not sufficiently involved in the response. And so I also want to play my role in listening to them. I think that no political decision maker can remain deaf at this call for justice between generations. And I think that collectively, our young people, our societies, our companies and our investors, heads of state and government, should rebuild a joint understanding of the world. We need to change our habits so that we can work together. Because if not, we will have these denunciations that no action can respond to, and then we'll also have actions that will be insufficient, even though we're saying that we're doing what we should be. So the only way to have a useful form of action working with our young people is also to establish understanding and to transform our collective system to respond to this imperative of the fight against climate change and for biodiversity. And we need to build useful actions. We need our young people in our countries to tell us to work faster. We need the young people to help us to change things, to act and to put more pressure on those who are recalcitrant, whether they are states or financiers or companies. This is what the three of us have been doing in most recent months, and following the UN Secretary General's mandate, we're trying to make progress. And I think that there is an action agenda that isn't about being self-satisfied, but it should be a positive agenda. Firstly, we as heads of state and government need to work collectively to respond more quickly. We need to keep to the Paris Agreement and to be consistent with its objectives. I'm very pleased, firstly, today that we've had the good news of the ratification of the Paris Agreement by Russia. That is wonderful news. It wasn't something we expected a few months ago, so that's a sign of progress. And I think it's worthy of applause. Secondly, if we want to act, and we want to act powerfully, we need to move towards carbon neutrality by 2050. We've built this coalition that continues to build with Chile, Japan, and other countries who have joined. I know that China is also moving, and India has given encouraging signals. This is an essential instrument. Within this framework, Europe needs to do more. And from 2020, Europe should take very clear decisions so that we can be up to the wishes of the new EU President Ursula von der Leyen of reducing our emissions yet further by 2030. So reducing emissions by 55% by 2030, meaning Europe will have to work more quickly. It will also have to be ambitious. We'll have to have a minimum carbon price that is higher than the current one. This is essential if we want Europe to be up to its own expectations. And within that framework, France will take on its responsibilities. We have already ended any new oil exploration on French soil. Now, the second part of this positive agenda, I think we need to have a trade agenda that serves the climate agenda. I think that a great majority of us believe in an open world, believe in a world of exchange, of trade, a world where we do trade, where trade is a factor of peace, where trade can also bring people out of poverty. Nonetheless, today we have to realize that our young people, and sometimes ourselves, we don't understand how the world works. We want to collectively take back control. We want to ensure that we have regional sovereignty and that we have a control of things and we understand what's happening. And so for that, we need to have a trade agenda that is consistent with our climate agenda. When we are trading, we have to be consistent. I don't want to see new trade negotiations open with countries who are running counter to the Paris Agreement. I think that that would be deeply hypocritical given all of the debates that we continue to have today and also in previous days. At least at European level, because that is a level that I can think at, we need to have a carbon neutral Europe and we need to have zero imported deforestation. This is essential. This is a deep change. It is a real revolution, and it doesn't mean that we don't import certain things, but that any imports should have a negative consequence. If there is a negative consequence in terms of deforestation, for example, that has to be compensated for. If not, we'll continue to have fine words, but a trade agenda that runs counter to those words. This is essential work that we have to do. And then finally, on financing, here again, we also have to be consistent with our actions. This consistency would mean not financing carbon-heavy infrastructure. We can't say that we advocate the fight against climate change, that we advocate biodiversity, and yet continue to finance infrastructure in other countries that is polluting, that increases CO2 emissions, and that runs counter to our commitments. Therefore, each of us, within our own trade and finance agendas, has to follow this line of thinking. We've had the International Development Finance Club, where commitments have been made and announced yesterday to provide financing of $1,000 billion. The aim is to move towards the is to make progress yet further. So there is still work that has to be done. But this is the first development. We're going to continue to finance renewable energies, promote direct access for the global south to international financing, and also more. We have many countries here who are committed to this agenda, which is absolutely essential and which is very dear to us. The Prime Minister of Jamaica and the Emir of Qatar will also be covering this agenda and talking about our mandate on the 100 billion that we should mobilize by 2020. That is essential for helping developing countries to catch up, and so that we can have an agenda of climate justice and of social justice and development. Just one last word by way of conclusion. The immediate priority is the Green Fund. The conference for recapitalisation will take place in a month on the 24th and 25th of October. Its governance was reformed this summer to make it more effective and more accessible. Germany, the United Kingdom, France have doubled their contributions. France will put 1.7 billion euros into the fund. Norway has also doubled its contribution. Yesterday, Denmark and Sweden also doubled their contributions. The Netherlands has increased its contribution. We are now at $7 billion as I'm speaking to you. The target is $10 billion to also make up for America's withdrawal. So maybe there might be some good news from the United States. I hope that that will come during this General Assembly. But I'm calling for each of you who have not yet done so. I'm calling on each of you who have not done so to increase your contribution to the Green Fund. I know that our Japanese friends are also want to see this. I know that the Emir of Qatar also has news to share with you, so I'm counting on each of you. Action, action, action. We cannot leave our young people continuing to spend all of their Fridays protesting. We saw the emotion this morning. And we have to do everything that is necessary. There's still work to do, but let's do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Merci. Your Highness,